You are not scared of failure, but how people perceive you. You defer from posting your hustle. What if my friends see it? They will laugh at me. You defer from taking that odd job, not because of the system of reward they communicate, which is meager by the way, but because of the experiences that you would accumulate along the way that evolves you to become a better person. Every single thing is evolutional. I've given this analogy countless times. The life of Michael Jordan, from getting kicked out of the basketball team in college to becoming a professional, the best at it, a motivational speaker, and all other facets of his achievements. Imagine if he had missed one step, especially at the infancy of his career. You and I would not give him the time of the day or listen to what he has to say because nothing is inspiring about his life, which is the first one. But people always like to wait for something to happen. I will start this business when XYZ, or when the new year hits, when this equipment lands, when this price goes down. But my friend, saying you're waiting for something external to conform is equivalent to I'll make this trip once all the lights are green. As ridiculous as that sounds, that's what most of you are doing. The chances of you making that trip are zero, is in the single digits, next to non-existent if you like. Another way we can look at it from is there is no such thing as perfection. Perfection is highly desirable, but nothing man-made is or can be perfect. To wait for perfection is to wait forever. Look at your iPhones. They get new upgrade every single year because there's endless room for improvement. You who's watching me, if you were thrust into some far-flung land to engage in a business venture of your own devices, would you think of failure? Or would you think of, how can I make this work? Exactly. You now see the dynamic shift between what if they laugh at me to what's the solution? How can I be better at this? It's very clear what the problem is. And it's good now you've highlighted the problem as opposed to knowing something is wrong. Because stating the problem is half solving the problem. I'll share keys on how to circumvent this anomaly as well as cure your fear of failure. Something happens when you fail over a long enough time frame. You begin to lose confidence in yourself. And it's not your fault. But especially, this is worse if you do not know how to interpret, if you don't know how to interpret failure properly. It becomes your undoing to engage in any activity that tests your faith, because that would be like a direct hit to your confidence, because in every effort there is shortcoming. In every effort there are shortcomings. So you need to teach yourself how to interpret failure properly. It's my life philosophy that nothing is good or bad except thinking makes it so. You and I can see a flag. One might feel disgusted, I might feel patriotic. So the same object of focus but different interpretation is the same with your life. Many of you, once you fail, to the average individual, he sees failure as a person as opposed to an event. failure becomes a negative experience in which it dwells in constantly, and your mind is designed to protect you from not just external, internal activities as well. Once it picks up on that, it begins to devise mechanics that hinders action. If you don't take action, you don't produce the result. So you might gain short-term comfort from that mechanics you're executing unconsciously. Majority of you have zero idea that this is the problem. Majority of you think you lack discipline, you think you lack motivation, but I guarantee you it's far from it. This is the problem you need to correct. It's not about watching motivational videos. No, your mind, you failed so much and dwelled in the experience, interpreting it as negative, such that your mind has devised mechanics that hinders you from going through that experience, which is action or procrastination, inaction or procrastination. For some of you, the moment you begin to attempt some audacious goal, your mind tells you, why not start from the smaller task, like a snowball analogy, from the small to the medium, then the big. The chances of you ever attempting that big task over the course of the day is zero. All of a sudden, the 2 t-shirts becomes a lot, and it becomes the 2 t-shirts fills the laundry basket. It becomes due for laundry. That dish you never use becomes alluring. The grocery store becomes the new fad. Bro, but you eat out. I'll just go get groceries. Maybe in case. You don't need groceries, man. So all of that activities your mind employs that engenders inaction. And this is not your fault. This is something you are executing unconsciously. One key thing to note is you must force yourself in the opposite direction. You must force and choose to err in the opposite direction. Majority of you, when things like this happen, you create a legal system for you to procrastinate. So you keep engaging activities that recede you from your goal. When the night hits, you back it up with scripture. For the night cometh when no man walketh, I'll start tomorrow. So you're creating systems that gives you legal ground to procrastinate without feeling guilty. It's a terrible way to live. Sure, you might gain the short-term comfort. Sure, you might gain the pleasure of inaction. But I'll guarantee you it was Theodore Roosevelt who said, you cannot do great things without doing the small things that add up to greatness. You cannot ignore the work. Nothing is going to substitute for hard work. Talking about it isn't doing it. Telling your friends you're going to do it isn't doing it. Writing your task isn't doing it, which is the trap people get caught up in. Even myself, I remember years ago, I would write my tasks down. Would I execute it? Probably not. But the dopamine I get from doing 2 activities that are not weightier relatively is enough for me to relinquish the others till tomorrow. So many of you are in the same position as me. You believe you're taking action. You believe you're doing every single thing because you've written tasks down. Ask yourself this question. Objectively scrutinize your actions for the past 30 days. Have you been doing the work? The answer is no. Most of you haven't. Most of you haven't. And on your journey, you are not taught on how to interpret failure properly. It's the same with me. Years ago, or at the infancy of this channel, we are under 50 subs. By every metric, we are a failure. But that was not it. I refused to dwell in that experience. Compare my videos previously relative to now. There's a shit ton of difference. Vastly so. I wouldn't be able to retain you up until this point just a few years ago. Which ties back to the fact that masters have different ways to evaluate progress and to do the same thing differently, while losers are trained to see only one way. To the losers or the average mindset, win or lose, but to the mind of a trained individual, of a master, he sees different ways to evaluate his progress. For instance, I was about to hire this HR, interviewing her. Tell me about yourself. She proceeds to give a long resume of her previous accomplishments. Impressive, I said. Alright, what's your hiring process? It depends on you. What do you mean by that? What's your cost of revaluation? What does that mean? She proceeded to explain. Okay, so how do you measure progress? It depends. I can't recall the word she used, but it indicates that she is a master at her crafts, because there are a ton of ways to do the exact same thing as opposed to employing this binary approach towards life. So my friends, I believe you've gotten a lot of value from this video. So if there are two things that you will take away. Number one, the first point of which we establish is failure does not define you. It is an event, not a person. Another one is do not fear failure. Most of your failures are psychological. You don't want to start that fruit stand business because you're scared of your friends. But the greatest of people were once ridiculed before they were revered. The greatest of people were once ridiculed before they were revered. I remember when Alexander Graham Bell solicited for investment around England for this project. They laughed at him. How could you possibly say the voice of the human can be traveled across states without wires and without any physical aid? But anytime we pick up the telephone, we salute our old friend Alexander Graham Bell, the man who stood on course and made it happen. As always, my friends, it's a pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you in the next one.